Warning: this podcast contains adult material and is not suitable for anyone under the age of 18. You have been warned. Do you like movies?
Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself.
What do you think about horror movies? Blood, guts, and mayhem.
Truly.
Then sit back, relax, and listen to the Dead and Rotting Podcast. And we are back to the Dead and Rotting Podcast. Hope that your week is going well and that you have had a great day so far. On our show today, we have one of my favorite dudes on the other end of the mic. That's right, Eric Spudic has volunteered to be my first victim of interrogation on the Dead and Rotting Podcast. He's been involved in so many movies, and so many of those are horror, that I just had to have him on the show. If you're wondering about all that Eric has been involved with, and check out his IMDb page. I've put the link in the show notes. He, like me, has a deep love for horror, and even though Eric and I have never met in real life, we've been in a movie together. And if you're interested, that movie is called Apparitions, and is available on Tubi. Anyway, enough about me and my rambling. Let's get to the interview. So I am here in the Dead and Rotting Podcast with my guest tonight, Eric Spudic, and I am going to let him introduce himself. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what you've done in the old horror movie industry?
Hi, I'm Eric Spudic, and I've been in show business for about a quarter of a century. I did my first official film, Micro Mini Kids, in 1999, produced by Charles Band and directed by Dave DeCoto, and I've been addicted to doing movies ever since. I guess I'm up to about 105 feature films, and still acting and doing the stunts. Not so much producing and writing and directing these days, but still trying to do that stuff eventually. I love the horror genre the most. I think it's the most fun. I love the blood and the guts, the special effects.
So what got you interested in movies specifically? And well, I guess more specifically horror movies. What got you interested and got you started?
I would say the big interest really started in 1992. The family got a VCR, and I went over to Walmart and I bought Armed Response with David Carradine. It was this action movie that I'd never heard of, but it was only $6. And I thought, well, I'll buy it, and I enjoyed it so much. And then I went back to Walmart and got Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and Night of the Living Dead.
Nice.
I don't know what it was about zombies, but I was like, I gotta get these movies because they're cheap and they had cool titles. And then and it turns out my grandma had a VCR as well, so I know we went across the street to the gas station and we rented Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 and Phenomena, the Dario Argento movie.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately I was like, I have to see every horror movie ever made. I don't know why. I just don't know. Maybe it's because I got bullied a lot in high school, and I always thought, we got to do something about these bullies. Like, I wish zombies or vampires or werewolves would just take them out. And so I lived in my little fantasy world. And so when I watched these movies, I was like, wow, that'd be cool if this creature, took care of this guy, this bully over here.
Oh, hell yeah. That's one thing that I miss too, is being able to go and rent the movies. There's something about it. Something about going to the store and renting them. But
That's right. Did they have any video stores in your area at all?
No, it's pretty much gone. There may be one in some little small areas around here, but pretty much all of them have left. I mean, we got, the Redbox stuff, but that's not the same to me, really.
I think here in Los Angeles, we do have maybe 7 or 8 video rental stores, but the problem is just the commute alone. It's a half-mile walk just to get to my car, and then driving to the nearest one might be, 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back. And
oh, geez.
so we're talking like an hour of work just to, rent a movie and then having to do that all over again to return it. And
right.
I don't know, it's just a chore now.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. So, speaking of LA, has the strikes kind of messed with your work at all? Some of the stuff that you're doing?
I do have to say I just wrapped a movie about a week ago that was pre-approved by SAG. So, I mean, I'm still working, but I do have to say the strike is probably going to go on for a few more months, and I think I'll start feeling it soon. I know for the stunt jobs, I'm not seeing hardly anything posted at all. It's just people saying, well, this movie's approved and this movie's approved, but they're not giving out details on how you can submit or who you submit to. And so, it's starting to affect me a little bit. I mean, I have 3 other jobs on top of the film industry, so, I mean, I'll be okay regardless. But for everybody else, I'm hoping we can go back to work soon. It's affecting a lot of people overall.
Oh, yeah. And we got some people here. I know Natchez has kind of started a little film community here, and it's just everything's shut down. We were supposed to have a Pacino movie that started sometime this month, and I haven't heard anything about it. So,
oh, man.
But, yeah, so I guess on this, besides sort of the strikes, what's some of the more difficult parts about working in horror movies?
I guess, well, probably the makeup, the latex, because sometimes it can be itchy or it can get really hot. If you're wearing a mask and it's 90 degrees outside, you're just sweating like crazy, and you're going to be more physical. There's a lot of running and yelling, and you're not just doing a scene once or twice, you're doing it like 5 times or 10 times, and it can get really draining over time. It wasn't so bad in my 20s or 30s, but now I'm in my 40s, and now it's getting a little bit tougher and exhausting to do some of these things, swinging around chainsaws and getting hit and thrown into the water.
Right, I can imagine, man. Because, those 12-hour days aren't fun. Well, I mean, they are, but they're not easy. So what is some of the best parts that you think about working on horror movies?
The fact that you can die over and over and over, whereas in real life you can only die once, but in the movies you can die forever. I think I've been killed about 15 times now. That's probably my favorite part, is the death scenes. I just love yelling and faking that I'm dying and having blood coming out of my mouth.
It is pretty awesome. I remember.
Plus
I just saw you.
Ahead.
Oh, I just saw you in a movie. Speaking of getting killed, the Night of the Tommyknockers.
Oh yeah.
You were like a miner, I think, or something, and I was surprised. I was like, "Oh man!" And then you're dead. I think you got a pickaxe through your head or something like that. I was like, "Holy crap!"
That's right. They didn't actually show my my death scene. I kind of I'm running away from the Tommyknockers, and then maybe 5 seconds later, a character runs past me. They had one of those, it was a foam rubber pickaxe that I had to hold in my mouth. That thing was so hard because I could barely bite onto it. And then meanwhile, I have to hold completely still up against the rock. And I thought, oh gosh, how long can I hold still? Because they're always making adjustments. Like, oh wait, move the camera over. Oh wait, this light just fell over. Okay, Eric, don't move. We're moving the light. But then the actor doesn't hit their mark, and they're like, "Okay, get back to your mark." And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, "Please get through this scene. I can barely hold this thing in my mouth anymore."
Well, it looked cool. I thought, man, that's pretty neat. So now we know what went into behind the scenes of trying to get that get the pickaxe in your mouth there. And I'm sorry,
shot that in.
I interrupted
That was in
you.
Nevada.
Oh, Nevada. Okay. How far a drive is that from L.A.?
Let's see. That was Searchlight, Nevada, which is maybe 4 hours away, 4.5 hours, maybe.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of in the middle of nowhere.
And did you get to meet old who was it that was in that one?
Richard Grieco and Tom Sizemore.
That's right. Did you get to meet those guys, or was that like separate days?
Yeah, they had already shot their scenes. That was in California at some ranch. They were shooting here for maybe 18 days or so, 20 days. I think it was kind of a long shoot. I was at the tail end of it. I shot for only 2 days, and then we were all wrapped. And then sadly, Tom Sizemore died, I don't know, maybe a year after shooting, I think, year and a half.
Yeah, that's right. It hadn't been all that long that he passed away. That's crazy. And then we lost Matthew Perry or Luke Perry. Oh.
Yeah, Matthew Perry and also Luke Perry a couple years ago.
That's right, both of them. Yeah.
And Richard Roundtree and Richard Mole.
That's
it's like
right,
everybody's.
Gosh, I kind of always held out that maybe I'd be able to meet Bull one day at like a convention or something.
I did meet him at a convention about 15 years ago, and sadly never thought to get a photo with him, and didn't even get anything signed. I don't think I realized that he was going to be at the convention, but I said something like, "Oh, I loved you in the movie House and Evil Speak," and when he shook my hand, his hand was so gigantic. I mean, I'm a tiny person, so I mean, obviously his hand's probably going to be bigger anyway, but I think his hand almost went up to my elbow.
Wow. I've heard online that he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, very nice guy. He had a huge beard at the time that I met him. He looked a lot different.
I can imagine. This is kind of a maybe completely different from what we were talking about, but what do you think about some of these recent remakes or resurrections of the old horror movies, like The Exorcist they just came out with, like the new run on Halloween, It, and The Child's Play? What do you think about those remakes?
I gotta say, going in, I usually frown upon some of the remakes. Well, especially when they remade Dawn of the Dead in 2004.
Yeah, 2003, 4, yeah.
Because the original Romero's Dawn of the Dead is my favorite film of all time. So to remake it was sacrilege. I thought, you can't touch that, and then they blew my mind. It was so damn good. It was one of the best remakes ever. I've seen it probably 10 or 15 times now, and I gotta say, the Blob and the Thing remakes are some of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
But I think the absolute worst I saw was the Fog remake. It did not work for me.
Yeah, me either. I actually walked out of that one.
Oh wow.
I mean, I happened to be working at the movie theater at the time, so I didn't pay for a ticket, but I just walked out. I was like, nah, man, this is not like the original at all.
But I try to see everything. I mean, because I'm just such a rabid fan of the genre. Like, I saw the new Exorcist movie, which is not a remake; it's a sequel. And
okay.
I think like that one I thought was really good. I don't know why it's getting so much hate. I gotta say, there's some corny parts, and maybe the middle of the movie isn't so good, but it rebounds. It makes up for it with the third act. I like the Hills Have Eyes remake. I thought that was really well done.
Oh yeah, that was actually really good. I'd forgotten about that one. That had some pretty legitimately creepy parts in it too.
I think the one I didn't care for so much was the Child's Play remake.
Yeah. I mean, the Buddy doll or iBuddy or whatever it was. I did not care for that very much.
It wasn't Chucky.
Yeah, exactly. It was, I don't know. Have you kept up with the Chucky series at all?
No, I haven't even seen it. See, I don't have TV, so I usually watch these TV shows about 5 to 10 years after they come out.
That's probably for the best, and you can see the whole run at one time.
Yeah, that'd be better because I don't like watching something and going, well, what happens next? And
Right,
stay
having to
tuned
wait.
in 9 months or whatever.
I'm the same way. So I know you said you haven't been doing. I know that you do write. So I know you wrote Viet Zom, and you've wrote several movies. One of, or maybe several that have been made into movies. But when you're writing, what are some things that you do to sort of feed your muse to help you get your ideas? Where do your ideas come from when you start writing?
Well, like for example, I wrote a killer rat screenplay, so immediately I went through my big movie collection of like 2,000 movies, and I grabbed every rat movie I could think of, and then I went to I think I was living in Shreveport at the time, I think, or maybe I had just moved to Baton Rouge. I went to all of these bookstores and thrift stores and just started scouring the shelves for any kind of rat books out there. And I just started consuming all this knowledge and researching about rats before I sat down to write the screenplay. So I spent maybe a month or so doing the actual research, and then a week to write the treatment, maybe 3 weeks to write the screenplay. So I try to just learn as much as I can, and I try to watch every movie. Like if I'm writing a zombie script, I have to watch as many zombie movies as possible, and I'll take these like 3x5 cards, and I will write down what's my favorite scene from each movie, and then I'll kind of just put them on the floor, and I'll have like maybe 10 or 15 cards with scenes, and I'm like, okay, now let's kind of replicate these scenes, but have it make sense and make a plot out of all of these ideas. So I mean, I guess everybody has their own process, you know.
I like that idea. Actually, that's a really good idea. I like the cards things. I haven't heard that before.
I like to listen to a lot of music too. Like when I wrote Creepies, I think the characters work in a radio station and they love hair metal bands. So I was just listening to like Dokken and Rat and Scorpions and Def Leppard and all that just over and over and over and kind of getting to that mindset.
Nice. So, are you working on anything right now, like a sequel to Viet Zom, or any other comic book ideas or things that you're writing?
Yeah, you know, everybody keeps asking if there's going to be a Vietnam War #2, because I mean, you got some characters at the end who are still alive, and they
Oh
could
yeah.
potentially have more adventures. But I did that, I guess, about 3 years ago because COVID had just started, and I thought, well, the movie industry is kind of shut down, and there's just not much going on, and I was looking at my stack of screenplays, and I was kind of annoyed that a lot of these have never sold, they've never been optioned. And I thought, well, you know, I got a lot of ideas that will probably never get made into movies. I thought, I've had this Vietnam idea for like 20 years. And I thought, you know, it's probably not going to get made, but what if I made it into a board game or something? Well, I Googled, there was somebody trying to make a board game called Vietnam at one time or another, and it never happened. And I thought, well, I can't make it into a board game. I mean, there might be a lawsuit or something. I
Yeah.
thought maybe I'll do a comic book instead, uh, but not realizing how expensive it is and how time consuming it is to do all the artwork and everything. I hired a guy in the Philippines to do the artwork, June Primero, and it took maybe 4 months to do the comic book and cost well over $3,000. And I thought,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, at the time I had some money to spare. I mean, I had gotten COVID assistance money, and I had just worked on a film that made me some money, and Amazon sales were actually doing really good. So I thought maybe I'll pour all that money into a comic book with the hopes that somebody will read the comic book and buy the rights to it, or you know, option it so I can make some money there.
That will be
So
awesome.
I gotta say, there's probably not going to be a part two. It's just too expensive, and the comic book didn't sell as well as I was hoping. In fact, I just did a little show on Sunday, so a week ago, and I only sold one comic book. I thought, oh my god, maybe not a good idea to do another one. But
Well,
as for
I certainly enjoyed it, and maybe one day we can actually see it on the big screen. That would be really really cool.
thank you, thank you.
There's a lot of cool death scenes in there. Um, And there's I think a lot of potential to be able to make that into a movie for sure.
Very heavily influenced by George Romero and
Yeah,
Lucio
definitely.
Fulci.
I can definitely see the influence there. And for me, I love the whole get to the chopper part. I was like, he had to put that in there.
Yeah, the comic book was basically POW The Escape meets Lucio Fulci's Zombie.
Nice. So, do you have any projects and stuff that you're working on recently that you can kind of talk about and where we can find them to be able to watch them?
Yeah, I stunt coordinated a movie called Deltopia that just came out on streaming at least. I don't know if it's on DVD and Blu-ray. Lionsgate put that out. And then I stunt coordinated another movie called Kalahari with Ryan Phillippe, Mina Suvari, and Emil Hirsch. That I think should be out next year sometime. They're still doing the visual effects on that.
Nice.
I'm trying to think what else was there. I acted in a short film called Trans PI about a transvestite private investigator.
That sounds cool. And is all this shot in LA, or did you have to drive around for that as well? Or, like you did for the Tommyknockers?
Yeah, Trans PI was shot in Pasadena. Let's see, Deltopia was shot in Malibu and Pomona. In fact, that was produced by Olivia Newton-John. That was probably her final film project that she worked on.
Wow.
But
That's
yeah, all
crazy.
these shoots are usually pretty far away. Like Night of the Bastard was shot in 29 Palms, which is like 3 to 4 hours away, depending on what time of day you leave.
Yeah, I hear traffic there could be really, really bad.
Oh, it's awful. I mean, just a trip to Walmart easily takes, and Walmart's only 10 miles away. It might take half an hour to get there and half an hour back.
Jeez.
And that doesn't even include the time being in the store. And then once you got all your groceries, you're like, okay, well, now I can finally check out and take off. Well, it's going to be another 10 minutes waiting in line just to check out.
Jeez.
But yeah, that's another one.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say Night of the Bastard is coming out on Blu-ray, I think, the next week or so.
Nice. I remember reading you had posted something about it, and I've been wanting to see it. I didn't know if it was out on streaming or not. So, Night of the Bastard.
Yeah, I played one of the bad guys in that one, and then I choreographed all the fight scenes.
Nice.
And that was a hot shoot there. Every day was 110 to 120 degrees.
Jesus. So I was going to ask you how I was living in LA, but it sounds like it's busy traffic out there.
Yeah, LA, there's enough to keep me here, with all the film screenings and the hiking trails, and there's all kinds of cool stores and restaurants. I mean, there's something to do almost every day. Like yesterday, I was sick. I've been sick for a couple of days now, so I had to actually turn down I had a ticket to see Goblin, the band who did Suspiria.
Yeah.
So I missed out on those guys last night.
Oh, dang.
And then I think in 2 nights from now, they're showing Rosemary's Baby at a theater near here. So it's like every day there's some event going on. There's always bands or films or conventions. But the drawbacks, way too many people here. We got 40 million people in California, so looking for a parking spot could be 10 minutes, and then you got the overly priced rents in the houses, and there's just, and lots of homeless people and rats everywhere. I've been assaulted, I think 4 times in the last 4 years now. So it's almost like an annual event. Like, who's it going to be this year?
Oh, jeez. I want to make it out there one of these days, though, just to see what it's like. I know for me, living close to New Orleans, there's kind of quite a bit of stuff going on there. I know I have friends in the business, and you were talking about 100 and something degrees. It was like that for them. It hasn't been too long ago. He said that they almost had to shut down production. It was so hot they could barely do anything. So,
Oh, man.
But speaking of LA, has there been what's your biggest starstruck moment? The moment where you just kind of met somebody that had you going like all fanboy,
I'm trying to think.
You've probably met a bunch.
I did see Patton Oswalt while I was doing Uber, I actually pointed out his wife first. I said to my Uber customer, I said, "Hey, there's Meredith Salinger. That's Patton Oswalt's wife." And then I looked next to her. I didn't realize just how short Patton is. And he's a big horror movie and B-movie fanatic as well. And
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, "Oh my God, that's Patton Oswalt right there!" And I got all excited, and I almost just wanted to pull over and just wave at them and say hello. But then I'm like, "Wait, they don't know who I am." And because I think you get used to seeing these people on TV, and you think that you know them. Well, I guess another good example is Clu Gulager from Return of the Living Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street 2. He was a friend of mine who just passed away, I think, about a year ago. And I remember when I first met him, he was at a diner, and it was a bunch of us movie industry people that were going to eat there for the night, and Clu was part of the group, but I hadn't met him yet, and he's reading a Fangoria magazine. I said, "Hey, I know you're in a bunch of horror movies, but I didn't realize, so you're an actual fan of horror movies?" And he goes, "I like looking at the pictures of the blood and guts." And I was like, "Oh my God, we're going to be friends for life."
Nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, who else have I seen? I've seen Quentin Tarantino driving around, Jennifer Lopez. I think the biggest surprise was not me fanboying them, but somebody knowing one of my movies, and that was Maria Menounos from I think Access Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
I think she's pretty famous. I think she was on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
met her in a restaurant, and she's like, "How do you know such and such?" And I was like, "Oh, we worked on a movie together, and then I wrote a movie called Creepies, and he's actually in Creepies too." And Maria goes, "Oh yeah, my boyfriend and I at the time." She goes, "We know Creepies," and I said, "Are you serious?" I said, "I wrote that movie." I'm like, "How'd you see it?" And she goes, "We know Jeff, the director." And I said, "Oh wow." And she goes, "Yeah, that's a fun movie." And I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you've seen that." And I was just kind of like, wow. I didn't know what else to say to her because I didn't really know much about her. I just knew she was famous.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, she's super hot too.
I know when I was younger, they used to have a news program for students that would show up on called Channel 1, and it was like it would play at a certain time of the day and give you all like the news, but it was geared towards like middle and high school, and she was on there. So that's where she got her start. Of course, I think she was like a teenager at the time
Oh
as
wow!
well.
I wonder if she's from the area because I didn't really ask where she was from.
I don't know. Let's see. I got another question here for you. So, if we had a time machine and could blast you back to the younger you, like high school you, and you had one thing that you wanted to say to young Eric, what would that be?
Probably invest more of your money into the stock market.
That sounds like something I would tell young Tim.
Because I mean, when you're at that age, you don't think too much about money and
Exactly.
longevity. I think my biggest regret is selling my Netflix stock, which was after I was in, way after high school. I think that was about 2006 or so. I bought maybe $1,000 worth of Netflix stock and held onto it for a while and maybe doubled or probably, I guess, tripled my money back and thought, wow, man, I made a really good profit. And so I sold it, not realizing how much it would skyrocket. And like nowadays, that would be worth probably $120,000 or $150,000.
Wow.
And it's like, oh my God, I wish I could have just kept it. But California, my rent has more than doubled since I moved here. So eventually I just got to a point where I had to sell it. I think that's probably the biggest advice I would give myself. Because looking back, I don't know if there's anything that really went wrong. I mean, my career never took off like I thought it would, but I don't know. I think that's probably my biggest mistake is, not putting more money into the stock market. Because as I get older, I think I really need to buy a house. And if I had invested more in the stock market, I might have 300,000 or 400,000 maybe. It's hard to say.
That sounds like some of my thoughts too, especially the house market as it is right now. Jeez. I can only imagine there in LA it's probably even worse. Even over here in Mississippi it's like, wow, but I can imagine over there it's skyrocketed even more.
Oh yeah, a cheap house here is easily, about $600,000 on
Jeez.
average. And I just wonder, like, what some of the houses going for around there for, say, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. Yeah.
Oh, I'd say somewhere around 200,000 ish, according to where
Wow.
it is. So yeah, that's a big difference.
Oh my God. Yeah, it sounds affordable. I think,
Yeah,
like, gosh, I could buy a house there.
yeah. And we have a lot of people that move over here to Natchez from other states and stuff. It's like it's just so cheap to buy here, and it's like, well, when you live and work here, it's really expensive to buy here. It's kind of a different way to look at it.
That's right. The minimum wage there is how much right now?
It's like $7.55, I think, or $7.25 or something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think because when I lived in Louisiana, I worked at a haunted house and they paid us minimum wage. And I think it was 7.25 an hour, but gosh, that was a decade ago.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. I mean, it may have changed in Louisiana, but it certainly hadn't changed in Mississippi.
Oh my God, that's bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. What are some advice that you would give to those who are aspire, not expire? Geez, we're talking about zombies here. Are aspiring to work in the film industry, specifically those who have the tendency to lean towards the horror side of the movie industry?
I would say the first thing everybody should get is a business card because I think my biggest pet peeve over the years, I go to a lot of conventions and networking events and, film screenings. So I hand out a lot of business cards. And a lot of times I meet people and I'm like, what's your name and what movies have you worked on? And by the time I get home, I can't remember their name or what movie they worked on. And I'm like, gosh, I can't remember now. And, I only remember the people that hand me business cards because I'm like, well, there's their information right there. So I always tell people, first thing you should get is a business card. It makes you look more professional too. Like when I was a little kid and I saw people handing out business cards, I'm like, that person is professional. They must be successful.
Right. And that's a really smart idea. I haven't thought about that. That gets you networking just immediately.
And I'd say the number two thing is a website. I think even though websites are kind of getting outdated with all the social media, I think at the same time it indicates that you're somebody, that you're doing something, that you're a person of importance. You're like, wow, this person has a website? Oh my God, they must be like at the top of the food chain.
Right.
So business card, website, and then some sort of training. I think everybody should take an acting class or a writing class, or just do your own stuff. I mean, now it's easy to get exposure. Like when I started in the 90s, I was shooting movies on videotape and just mailing copies out. There was no YouTube, no social media. I mean, in fact, nobody had the internet at the time. This was like 95, 96. And nowadays, it's like everybody can just upload stuff to YouTube. So I tell people practice, practice, practice. Get your friends together and make a short film and just show it off. And maybe the right person will see it and say, hey, we want you to shoot a commercial for our company. Or, oh, hey, we're shooting a TV show, even just to do background extra work. It's just to be on set working and finding out how things operate.
Yeah, I know definitely just being on set itself is sometimes it's surprising, especially like the bigger budget stuff. It's surprising to see how many people it takes to make a movie, what's going on behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, easily 30 or 40 people on set.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. You never think about that stuff when you're a kid and you're watching movies. It just all seems like magic.
My first film, they said, Eric, come up to your mark. And I was like, the what? And he goes, the tape on the floor. I said, oh, I was wondering why there's tape on the floor. And he goes, yeah, that's called the mark. And I had no idea.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Hopefully someday I can come back to Mississippi and do a movie because, I always enjoyed shooting with Steve Sessions over in Biloxi. That was some of the best times of my life.
Oh, yeah. And he's moved on up. I think he's in, I want to say...
Connecticut.
Yeah, Connecticut. That was it. I knew it was something. There was a horror movie with the title of it in there, Haunting in Connecticut.
In fact, the house that he lives in is the same house that is used for a little bit of Dead Clowns when Debbie Rochon is getting terrorized by the zombies.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's interesting. That's interesting, especially since that's my first thing that I ever saw Steve do was the Dead Clowns. But the theater there that I think who was that? Was that Jeff Dylan Graham? That
Yeah,
was
he was
on
in
there?
that one.
Yeah, that movie theater that they were shooting at there at the beginning, it got destroyed in Katrina, I think, like completely wiped away.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they told me about that. Yeah, because that was what, yeah, 2006. I called Steve Sessions to see if the hurricane did any kind of damage, and I could not get a hold of him for like 3 weeks, and I didn't realize it had hit Biloxi hard.
Oh yeah, I remember you couldn't get any calls to go through to anybody for a long time. It was crazy.
Yeah, no emails, nothing. I was just like, well, I guess he's dead.
Yeah, a lot of people just think that it happened over in New Orleans, but it wiped out a lot of the coast too, for sure. Well, I know you already said this, but I'm going to ask you it anyway. What is your all-time favorite horror flick?
George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. I've seen it, oh God, easily 50 or 60 times. I love the fact that it's a combination of it's just not a horror film. It's also a comedy, an adventure. It's sort of a western. It's just so many movies in one. It's a biker film. I
Right.
mean, it's flawless to me. I've seen it. In fact, it's playing at the theater down the street from me for a couple more days at the Regal, like 2 miles away. And I actually did see it on the big screen last year in 3D.
Oh
And
man.
I think I've met, I don't know, half a dozen people that worked on the movie, and I'm just in awe of those stories every time. And I love the sequel, Day of the Dead, almost as much. It's a really, really good movie as well.
Oh yeah. I watched that again not too long ago and thinking about all those people having to eat those rotting uh, intestines. That's always got me. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. I mean, I love zombie movies and all that, but I don't know, man. That'd be hard for me to chow down on some rotting guts.
Oh, yeah, just the smell alone
Oh
would make
no.
you gag.
But they did it, and they got us. Well, I mean, Bud himself is probably one of the. I guess you could say one of those figures that stands out in horror over the years. Just that character alone, to me, that, well, of course, that leads into Land of the Dead when we start seeing that zombies can learn and stuff. So
Yeah, I like Land of the Dead a lot as well, but then Diary of the Dead came along, and I was like, oh, what is he doing?
yeah,
And then Survival of the Dead, I just didn't care for. But I mean, admittedly, George was getting up in age,
yeah,
it's going to be hard to do really, really good work in your 70s, I
right.
mean,
And all of it to me just kind of comes back, because to me, Dawn of the Dead is it. That's kind of his best work to me. Although I really like his other stuff, like Night Riders and Martin, pretty cool. But yeah, something about Dawn of the Dead is, like you said, it's a bunch of stuff in one, and it's pretty flawless. Even the all versions I used to have, they have like the European cut and like the original theatrical cut and like the uncut. I've seen them all, and they're all, to me, they all do it justice, I think.
yeah, great soundtrack too by Goblin. I
Yeah.
play that soundtrack over and over.
So, where can we find your stuff here? I know you've got a website going and you've got your own online stuff. So, why don't you tell us where we can find more information about you and more stuff about Spudic's Movie Empire?
Yeah, in fact, I've had Spudic's Movie Empire since the 90s. It was originally called Blood Guts Collectibles. And then I opened a store in 2008 over in Van Nuys, and then shut that down around 2011. I want to reopen the store someday, but it's just really expensive and really difficult to find the perfect place for it. But meanwhile, we're on Amazon at SpudicsMovieEmpire.com, and there's also a Facebook page for it. And I've sold all kinds of stuff: video games, comics, paperbacks, CDs, records, magazines, VHS tapes. We used to have Laserdisc. We still got record albums, just all kinds of different things. And then, let's see, Night of the Bastard is coming out on Blu-ray from Culture Shock releasing. Night of the Tommy Knockers is on Amazon Prime and Tubi. And then Vietnam War is also on Amazon. I guess pretty much everything is on Amazon these days. They're kind of the juggernaut.
Yes, definitely. If you need it, you can probably find it on Amazon. All right. Do you have anything else that you want to add, or anything that I said that you wanted to add to, or anything?
I think that's pretty much it. I'll just keep trying to make more movies. I do want to go back home to Illinois at some point and make a movie over there. It's a little bit cheaper to hire people, and plus it's just the whole idea of going back to your hometown and saying, hey guys, let's make a movie. It's been 20 years. Let's do it again. So toying with the idea of either doing a zombie movie or doing a Christmas movie. So two completely opposite, genres, because the Christmas movie would be G-rated. I mean, like, no violence, no foul language, nothing. It would just be fun for the whole family. But it's something that I could make money and then maybe take the profits from that and do something that I really want to do, like a vigilante movie or a zombie movie, of course.
Nice. Well, I hope you get to do that, man, and please keep me updated as much as you can, which, I mean, I watch your socials and stuff like that, so I'm in the know. So anybody that wants to get a hold of you, also have your website too. It's is it ericspudic.com? Is that it, or is it
.net?
ericspudic.net. Okay.
Yeah, which essentially just goes to my IMDb page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to have a website, but then I think they wanted to start charging me, and I did have .com at one point. It got hijacked by somebody. I guess I forgot to renew the domain name.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly they said, if you'd like to have this domain back, it's only $2,000. And I thought, oh, gosh. And I thought, I'll just put .net. I mean, what difference does it make?
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you being on with us here. And this has been Eric Spudic. Well, that does it for us this time. If you have anything to say or want to add to the conversation, send us an email at deadandrottingpodcast@gmail.com. As always, you can find us and like our stuff on Instagram at Dead and Rotting Podcast. We even have a Facebook page under Dead and Rotting Podcast. Reach out to us. Suggest some horror flicks. If you or someone you know is a horror filmmaker, please contact us so that we can get you on here, or at least give you a shout out on here to promote your work. Also, if you're an artist, whether music or graphics, and you want your stuff to be seen and heard, hit us up, and we'll have your stuff on the show too. It's not something I charge for, and it's always free for me to promote your work. If you want to find us on other places other than Spotify, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, you can find us on iHeartRadio and Amazon Music. All music used from pixabay.com. Hope you have the best of times, and I will be here for you next time. But before we go, did you hear about the guy who had a wreck on his motorcycle and slid half a mile on his left side? Well, he's all right now.